microphone and introduce yourselves, and we'll get right into the story.
I'm Waldo Larry. Nice to see you all.
Hey, folks. I'm Steve Capper, Waldo Steve.
And I just want to thank you, all you tables and chairs, for making it out tonight. I'm Waldo Dave.
And I'm Jeff Noel, Waldo Jeff.
And I'm Thomas Norton.
All right, so here's, I'll get the short version and I'll let the guys tell all the nitty gritty, the details. But basically, we're talking about 1971. You guys were in high school right here, San Rafael. You had gotten wind that there was a pop harvest somewhere near Point Reyes, and there was a map to lead you to the treasure. This came, well, you guys can explain how it got to you. And you met at the statue of Louis Pasteur at 4:20 p.m. and you set out to find the secret stash of wheat.
But first, we had to get high.
Right, of course. How can I forget that important detail? So, Dave, you want to kick us off? Who wants to do this?
You know, just to preface this whole thing, before this 420 thing came about, we were a group of guys that were hanging out in high school on Friday nights at the football games. We were the guys underneath the grandstand smoking the doobie going, what are we doing here? You know? So Steve started going places, and I'll let you take over from there. The first
I was bored with football games. I didn't like people just running back and forth on the field. So one night, Rolling Stone magazine. I have an older brother who hippie, counterculture, and we get Rolling Stone magazine in the house, but nobody knew what it was. And I read an article about some guys down on the peninsula who were creating the very first holograms. And we're talking 71. Images, three-dimensional images made of light. What in the hell is this? So one day, I just took off from the football game. Oh, it said that these guys were so enthused by what they were doing, they'd work around the clock at this lab. And it was down the peninsula. So I ran down to the lab, pounded on the door at 1 in the morning, said, hey, can I see your city of holographic light? And they were like, sure, come on in. So I visited them, cracked them up, and then I came back to the Waldos the next week and I said, hey, you gotta go see this holographs, things we never heard of before. So we get high and we go down and we visit them, and we had these scientists just cracking up. By the time we were leaving, they were hugging us and they're like, come on back anytime. So that was our first, we call it a safari. And each week we were making a concerted effort to find some unusual adventure to take. It was a challenge each week to do something out of the ordinary. So we'd go on these things called safaris.
Well, Steve, forgot to tell you that he went there solely by himself first time. He told us about it. We all went down there. We checked it out. The guys loved us. We had a great time. And then we started challenging each other every week to come up with a new safari. I came up with the name
And of course,
Safari.
we'd always go high. It was like Cub Scout field trip stone.
So we were seekers looking for new and weird experiences with new and weird people. And we wanted to do it every week. We didn't want to hang out with the jocks and all the cliques in high school.
There's so many movies that have stoners as slackers, forgetful, stupid. We weren't. We were active. We were intelligent. He was getting awards for animation. I was getting awards for accounting. These guys were playing
We were
football.
all getting awards for smoking a lot of weed.
So we were active seekers. It's not Spicoli or anything like that. That's not our background.
Okay, well, continue. How did this map make its way to you?
So one day we're hanging.
You want to introduce your pattern?
I'll let you do. We used to hang out on a wall. That's why we're the Waldos. And we would step
By
there.
the way, the wall was in the middle of San Rafael High School on the campus. And we'd hang out there in between classes, and we'd make fun of people going by and do
Not to
impressions.
their face. Just
Not to their
amongst
face, just amongst ourselves to crack each other up, to see who could make each other crack up. So that's what we did between
Dave
classes.
here, master impressionist, always doing, in fact, all these guys do impersonations. We would create catchphrases, slogans. 420 was just another one of our catchphrases. We had hundreds of them. that's just the tip of the iceberg of the whole story. There's this whole huge background to the story that nobody knows about.
So you're getting the clue here that these guys like to have fun?
Yeah,
Maybe, just maybe.
it was the fun vibe on steroids. Anyway, Steve, so one day I'm on the wall, and a guy named Bill McNulty, that's Pat's brother, comes up to me and he says, "Hey, my brother's in the Coast Guard." Actually, it was his brother-in-law. I didn't know that. And these guys in the Coast Guard are growing some weed, and for some reason, they think their commanding officer is going to bust them, and they don't want to get busted. So they've made a map and said, "We could pick it," and he showed me the map. Here's the map, and we're like, "Yeah."
And it was a no-brainer. You're 16 years old, you have no money, you have no weed. Yes, we're going for it.
So a couple of these guys, like I said, were active. Larry had football practice. He was a manager of the team. So we got out of school. It's around approximately 3:20. We decided they had to go to their football practice for an hour, and then we decided it was just perfect to meet at the statue of Louis Pasteur at 4:20. And we'd get high, and
Then we'd hop in Steve's 1966 Chevrolet Impala. It was a 4-door. It was like a couch in the back seat, and it had a Craig 8-track stereo, and it had all these different lights that when the tracks changed, it was like green and blue and yellow, and if you were in the back seat and the car was filled with smoke, it looked like a little light show if you were looking over the shoulder at the 8-track.
So,
all right, turn the next track.
we had music on every second. There was a soundtrack every second, everywhere we went. So we'd go out to Point Reyes, we'd be listening to something like some boogie-woogie music, Commander Cody, our heads would be bobbing all the way out. And we get out there, we go looking for this pot, like week after week. All kinds of weird things happened out there. You're in a cloud of smoke. And so we're trying to follow this treasure map. Years and years later, we found out, we didn't know that when Gary, the Coast Guardsman, made this map and handed over, Patrick was with his brother Bill. So
Pat actually saw Gary handing his Bill the map, and Pat was a little jealous because he wanted to be part of it too.
Well, we ran for the weekend, me and my brother, the map, and we were looking at it, and we were trying to figure out where in the hell is the weed. so the map was just, had 2 trees, had probably 19 plants in between, and electrical balls. And the fence. And that was it for the map. So sometime my brother-in-law didn't make a good map.
Years later, he made like a little creation of the map for us because we don't have the original map. So anyway, we knew we were going to go look for this weed all the time. We'd see each other in the hallways of high school during the day, and we would remind each other we're going to meet at Louis Pasteur at 4:20.
So we'd say 420 Louis, and
Right.
just nod.
Nod at each other.
420 Louis.
Yes, okay.
And it was always with a smile because it was a private joke. It wasn't just a code. It was a joke to us.
So we spent like weeks out there looking for this patch, and we had different groups of first all of us went out, and then as the days and weeks went on, maybe Steve would go out with Larry and Mark, or Jeff and I and Steve would go out, but we'd always be looking for this patch, and we never found it.
By the way, we dropped Louis from the phrase.
So after a while, we just wanted to shorten it from 420 Louis, which was the original saying, to 420.
And who cares if you found it, really? At that point, it was the experience.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
then we soon found out we could talk about weed, 420, and
Yeah.
nobody would know what we're talking
We
about.
could talk in front of our teachers, cops, our parents, say 420, they didn't know what we were talking about.
okay, so I think everyone in here is secretly fascinated, and I know I am. When did you first realize it had spread beyond you guys?
So I think that's my story, right? Was that in
We were
1989?
definitely seeing it carved into like picnic tables and stuff before.
Spray painted on
We
walls.
started seeing it everywhere, and one day I made a phone call to Steve, and we started hearing what the 420 stories, the false stories were.
Have you guys all heard the false stories? It's a police code.
It's a
this
police
and that.
code, yes, and smoking in progress,
It's,
it's all kinds
it's
of.
the time Jerry Garcia died. It's
Right.
not true.
The chemistry.
The fables are still being made up. Like
Yes.
every year, there's like 5 new fables.
Wait, so what year was this when you started seeing, like, are we talking about the 80s?
No,
We
this-
No,
started
it's
in
the 90s.
71.
We actually saw things carved in benches and spray painted for years.
Yeah.
But then it started getting more prevalent, and Larry called Steve up one day. And go ahead, Larry.
I called Steve up one day and I go, can you believe these stories that are coming out? We should tell someone the true story, which is funny because I found
started
out
seeing
that
on
you
too many
worked at
things.
High Times
Yes.
about the time that Steve, I believe, came up with the idea that he was going to get a hold of High Times, that Stephen Hager there.
Steve originally got in touch with the High Times Tours Company.
420
And,
tours.
420 Tours, because of the name, and they pointed him towards Steve Hager.
Right. So
And I
I worked at High Times at the time. This is just complete coincidence. But and around 1998, when your article came out, was when I was the managing editor at High Times. I'd been a photo editor. So I knew Steve Hager, and the story was starting to make its way around. But I had always figured that it came out of the Dead scene. Why was that connection made?
Well,
There was about 3 different connections. One was Dave's brother.
my brother Pat has been friends with Phil Lesh for probably almost 50 years. They're pretty good friends. And when the Grateful Dead took a hiatus in 1975, Pat managed a couple of Phil's side bands. One was called Too Loose to Truck, get that name, and another one was called Sea Stone. So I was working for those guys, and I was getting high with Phil and guys like David Crosby and Terry Haggerty backstage, and I was using that term all the time with Patrick. I'm not sure if that's how it spread, but I was using it amongst those guys.
Well, then there's another Waldo. There's one Waldo missing tonight, Mark Ravitch, and his
Yeah, we
dad.
buried him.
His dad handled a lot of the real estate needs for the dead. They needed office space. They needed warehouse space for the equipment. They needed places to rehearse. When they all made money, everybody in the organization, he would find them their homes in the Marin County Hills, and then we'd go babysit their houses. So we're around them a lot. Hey, 420. The dead community picked up on it, and his dad was always taking us to concerts on the guest list. We're backstage. So they picked up on it. And of course, the dead community across the whole world, they smoked.
Yeah.
You'd see it in the parking lots. You'd walk into a concert, and in the parking lot, somebody would be firing up, and you'd even ask them, do you know 420? Have you heard of 420? And we just rhetorically put that into perspective, and they would look at you like, what do you mean?
Well, I also remember seeing it in the 90s in the Relics newsletter. Before Relics was a magazine, there was a 420 section, and so anyway, let's go back to you connect with Steve Hager from High Times. He's the editor-in-chief of High Times at the time. They had a company called 420 Tours, which was doing trips to the Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam and other sort of weed-related tourism. And the burden of proof was on you guys.
Yeah, from what we hear, a lot of people at High Times doubted Stephen Hager. They're like, are you kidding? Are you sure? This sounds like bullshit. You're running on a wild goose chase. You're out of your mind. And we heard he got a lot of flack.
So he said, hey, do you guys, what about this story? He said, well, we have proof. Come on out. So we got on the
Said you have
cheapest
proof?
airline there ever was. What was it? El Cheapo Airlines. And he stayed with us for the weekend, and he followed us around with a video camera. We showed him our proof, our evidence, and he took the story back to High Times.
Can we see the flag, Steve?
Yeah. Here.
Okay, so describe, if you could, what we're looking at.
Yeah, Steve, go ahead and take it
So
off.
we were making up all these phrases. We were going on these weird safaris, doing all this weird stuff. And a lady named Patty, friend of a friend, she had to do an art project at Centerville High School. So she decided, she had nothing else to do, to make us a flag. And you can see it's in the style of the 70s.
It's a batik.
It's a batik. It's got a big marijuana leaf there.
And by the way, that's going to be in a museum someday. I asked Steve Hager at the time, he's all, it's going to be in a museum someday, the Marijuana Hall of Fame. And I'm all, where's that? He's all.
So Patty made that, we call her the Betsy Ross of the Waldos. I've had it for years and years, and at this point in time, when I went away to college, she wrote me a letter, which I have here, where it's postmarked, early 70s. And she
Pull
says,
the letter out, Steve.
hold on, just a second.
Why we can't bring all the evidence?
Yeah, this stuff we actually keep it in a vault.
Yeah, in San Francisco, at
coming up
the
like-
Wells Fargo
it's
building,
like
and believe it or not, it's located at 420 Montgomery Street. Not kidding.
And we didn't need that. It was an accident after we got the box. So here,
Sorry, and around what year is the flag from?
That's
by
1971.
the way,
Okay.
I have her school records. She doesn't want really public.
And Pat McNulty was in her class with her when she made that flag, as well as Waldo Mark.
I have her school records showing the art class in the early 71 where she made the flag. And then we just found out today he was in that art class. You remember him hanging on the wall?
Oh my God.
And then here it says, right in the letter when she wrote me, it says, how's the EOT 420 flag coming along? Right here with the postmark.
And then there's other letters from me, like, do you have that letter that I wrote you in 75?
Sure, this is part of the.
Hey, that's valuable stuff, don't drop it. Somebody might step on it.
There's a school newspaper. Let's see if I can find the right letter.
You think?
What?
Go figure.
All right. Well, let's talk more about the High Times story while you look, Dave.
Yes.
If you went to Hager, he published the story. What was the reaction?
My girlfriend's daughter at the time was taking the magazine to high school to show it to everybody. And, the reaction was, back then the internet wasn't so prevalent. So I think about maybe 2002, and when the internet became more prevalent, and we had a story in the Los Angeles Times on the front page. And I think that's when it started exploding.
So you recall that there was a tipping point. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was around then. the early
Around
2000s.
98 when, like I say, there's more merchandise, more companies. They were kind of sneaking 420 into their names. There are tens of thousands of businesses now.
Right.
This says right here, Dear Waldo Steve. So it
That's
has
from
a
me.
reference to Waldo. It says, my brother is Phil Lesh's manager, and last weekend I had a job as a doorman backstage at a concert. I smoked out with David Crosby and Lesh and got paid $20.
$20.
And then
$20.
And he smashed up a bunch of weed and sent it to me with his letter.
I still remember rolling the joint. The doobie was a big fat one, and I had to hammer it down to make it flat to get it in this envelope.
It says, P.S. a little 420 enclosed for your weekend.
Nice. All right. So the story comes out 2002, 2003, which, by the way, is when a lot of these sort of stoner movies started becoming more mainstream, like Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle.
Inserted in straight movies a lot.
It was, and I actually wrote a book called Reefer Movie Madness, and it's about stoner movies, and we had an entire section of 420 references in the movies, some of which we didn't know whether they were intentionally 420, but like in Lost in Translation, Bill Murray wakes up in the middle of the night, the clock's on 420. Is that coincidence? I think not. So,
So what about Elon Musk?
right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's funny.
Selling shares at 420.
Yeah.
And the SEC is tripping him about getting in his, about 420 jokes.
Right.
Amazing.
Right. So, okay, so 2002, 2003 really becomes a phenomenon. Did you guys ever try to trademark it or put your name onto it in a more official capacity?
We didn't really start thinking about that. To be honest with you, we never made money off this thing. It was just a joke, and somehow it morphed into this huge worldwide celebration. And it was about the time of day. It wasn't on April 20th. It was the time of day. And the best thing about 420 is it happens 2 times a day.
Right.
So that's what it was about originally. And then Boom saw someone with a flyer in Oakland at a Dead show and said, come meet up on Mount Tam at 420. This was about 1999?
Yes.
Or 90, 91.
Yeah, I spoke to
91.
Steve before this panel, and he said it was around 1991.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In order to trademark something, you have to, it's for a specific category.
Right.
Like if you're going to do sunglasses, you're going to do 420 sunglasses, and you just don't grab it. You have to be making the sunglasses and using
Right.
an interstate trade.
But you guys have the proof. Most people, when they try to trademark something, it's just like, oh, that was It's I discovered the Cobb salad.
Well, for one thing, you can't.
Are you enthusiasm?
Yeah, I like that.
It was a good Cobb salad because we smoked a fatty before.
But you guys actually have the proof, you know, so it's like you could maybe make a case. Did you ever try? Did you look for a lawyer? Did you?
We have a trademark. We have a few trademarks.
It's for 420 Waldos.
Got it.
You cannot trademark the number.
The number. Right.
But we have a 420 Waldos trademark.
And what about movies? Has anyone ever,
Are you
approached
kidding?
you guys?
We've been through a lot.
Okay,
we
so
we
tell
have
us about
fielded
that.
many offers from documentarians and feature film producers, but we haven't found a fit that is good for us yet.
One guy contacted us and went back and forth for a few months, and then all of a sudden it's like he sends over a legal agreement. He wants every right in the world, your digital, all your video. He wants all your compressed medical waste. I mean, anything and everything for like eternity. He wants it. And we're like,
To
no, thank you.
perpetuity, yeah, that's their famous contract line. So we have dealt with several film producers, and we're still hoping to get a film made, but we haven't found the right fit yet. So if there's anybody out there who's a big time producer,
Yeah.
There's so many aspects to it. I mean, you got a treasure map, you got teens, you got connection with the Grateful Dead, you have everybody loves the 70s. I got like.
It just sounds like a movie to me, you know?
Yeah, there's just so much. Although we went on a lot of adventures, you have to employ 5 stunt Waldos.
All right. Well, look, I wanted to ask you something else. You know, as someone who's covered marijuana for many, many years, 20 years now, you know, and the laws have changed, and I go to a fish show or a Dead and Co show, and everybody's got their own weed. It's no longer communal. People don't pass it, you know? Has the sort of like fun of it been taken out, even though we're so thrilled and happy that it's, legal recreationally, medicinally, all these, all the progress that we've made is amazing. But something seems lost.
That's true. Back in the 70s.
we were outlaws back then. That's what made it so exciting and fun.
We were a brotherhood of outlaws, and the air was charged. Yeah, there's a lot of adrenaline
Because
and
you
a
could go
paranoia.
to jail for smoking a joint.
Another aspect of the story, which is amazing, Jeff's father happened to be a very high-level narc, state of California. I mean, what a coincidence there.
So we definitely needed some form of code.
So we got into his trunk too.
Freely,
He'd
right?
do a bust and come home with all the goods in the back of his car, and Jeffrey would get the key.
Are you?
Yeah, we
We
knew
knew that
that.
code meant something.
I think the statute of limitations is over. So
Well,
we can
there's
talk
that
about
code connection, see, and the cop, and the
And
code.
Jeff knew a lot of legal terms. Like one time, Jeff and Steve and I were in Nevada. This had to be about 1971 or 70, and we're at Harris, and Steve is in the parking lot, and he said, "Okay, I'll roll some joints and I'll meet you in there." Okay.
Wait, we gotta back up a second. We're going up. I didn't want to get busted, so all the way up to Tahoe, Jeff is teaching me search and seizure laws, and he says you to all the codes and everything. He says you can have it locked in your glove box, and they can't make you open it. So we get up to Tahoe. We're parked. These guys go to the bathroom, and I'm there rolling a joint. Next thing I look back, there's cops back there. I lock it in the glove box. And they go, open up the glove box. I go, no, according to California law 5672, which he taught me, I don't have to open up a locked glove box. And he goes, you're a Nevada boy. I was like 60 yards just over the state line. I didn't even think about that.
Casino parking
So
lot.
we come out and we see Steve and all these cops around.
Where, oh shit, don't go out there. Just don't go. Stay back, stay
All
back.
right, we'll wait this out.
Another great scene for a movie.
We read this stuff up.
Stories like that.
You couldn't write this stuff, I'm telling you.
Paul Krasner did a book called
Steve, you should finish that one. You should finish that.
So when he was finished, what did Steve do? What did the cops do?
They took
Well, they eventually they just said your number like 56297 in the state of Nevada. You have to leave. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to get out of Nevada. You can never come back to Nevada for the rest of your life. So I ran down to the border, and I figured those guys would come find me. I was right on the border up at state line. So I was on the California side, just waiting for the guys, and I could see the cops down the block. And just to taunt them, because I knew they didn't have jurisdiction in California, I would jump on the Nevada side. And then when they started coming, I'd jump back to the California side. But eventually they came and found me.
So there were several run-ins with cops over our time together. One time we were driving to LA in 1974 to go see the Tonight Show. We wanted to see the Tonight
And
Show.
go to Disneyland to smoke out on every ride in Disneyland.
Right, so we're driving down Disneyland will come after this. We're driving down the highway and in the afternoon we're smoking 2 or 3 doobies with the 8-track blasting, and we brought this young lady from high school, gave her a ride to LA with us. So we're driving along, and all of a sudden Steve looks in the rearview mirror, he's all, shit, there's a cop behind us, put that up! And everybody's throwing the doobies out the window, but except the windows were all rolled up and they're bouncing back in. The car's filled with smoke. I look around, I see another cop on our right side, and then there's another cop on our left side, then there's a cop in front of us, and they're pulling us all over on this highway down by San Luis Obispo. We're going, holy shit! And the car's filled with smoke. A cop comes up to the window.
Wait a second, they pull us over. All the cops get out and all pull their guns.
They
They're all
have their
taking their
guns
guns in
drawn,
their car.
and they're coming up to the window like this, and they say, all right, he rolls down the window, Steve rolls down the window, this big puff of smoke goes in the cop's face, and he's all right, driver's licenses for all of you. So we all coughed him up, we're all, oh shit, we're going to jail. And the cop takes the driver's licenses back to the car, and he comes back. We sat there for like 20 minutes with all these cops around and just freaking out. And he comes back up to the window and he says, well, we're going to let you go. And what did you say to him, Steve?
I was mad because we worship Johnny Carson. They were stoner hippies and we love Johnny Carson. We're going to see the Tonight Show. It taped at 5:30. We weren't going to make it. I just said to the cop, you goof, now we're going to miss Carson.
And the reason why they pulled us over is they thought we were the SLA, and the woman with us was Patty Hearst.
Wow.
There's a big manhunt for Patty Hearst that you read about in the newspapers all over the place.
So the Disneyland story, we did see the Tonight Show, and it was great. And
I didn't see it tonight.
no, not that night, but we went the next night. And then we went to Disneyland, and we're at Disneyland, and you know that tram that goes through the Matterhorn, that gondola thing? We're smoking a couple doobies on that thing, going through it, and we get off the ride, and there's like 4 security guards come up and says, come with us. We're all, uh-oh. And so they take us in this back room, and they start interrogating us, and they say, we don't like your type here at Disneyland, we don't like marijuana, and you shouldn't be here. Do you have any more? No, we don't have any more. They say, okay, we're going to let you go, but you better not do this again. They say, oh no, we won't do it again.
So we go back to Frontierland.
And then we go to Frontierland, we see this fence.
We hop
over this chain link fence.
and we go down into the south. There's like a mock-up of the Southwest, a couple acres. So we're running all over the little Southwest, getting high.
And there's like boulders and
then all of a sudden we hear this train coming
this
up.
whistle tooting. We're all, ooh.
So the train comes up, and then we run and we hide behind this big giant boulder, and we light up a joint behind the boulder. All of a sudden, the train comes in and just stops, and the guide on the train stands up on the train, just points right at us, and he goes, oh my God, oh my God. He goes, it's Old Faithful, and right next to me, a fountain goes up.
And we all get soaked.
We're just getting
soaks the joint
and
out.
we can't run away because all the people on the train.
But they didn't see us, they were hiding.
Amazing.
Lots of adventures.
Yes, lots and lots of adventures. So I'm sure you guys have been in like party situations. Someone goes, oh, tomorrow's April 20th, 420. And then you go, you know, me and my friends invented that.
Oh yeah, one time, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was with Steve Hager at the marijuana thing, the 420 day in the park. So we're over there and there's 20,000 people, and you know, I wasn't too impressed. Because at 420 it was just a big cloud of smoke went up. There was no ceremony, and afterwards I volunteered with Steve to pick up the garbage. So we got plastic bags, we're picking up garbage, and he's going around to people saying, hey, this is one of the guys that started 420. I'm all, shut up. And they're all, we don't believe you anyway.
Wow.
People, it's important to people now in the business world. If I say anything, they're excited. Everybody, bankers want to take pictures with me, and just, yeah, it's actually pretty useful now.
This just happened yesterday at work, where I work in a winery, and there's someone across the counter talking about it at that time of day, explaining to another couple from the Midwest what it was in her interpretation. I just sat back and bit my lip, let her tell her version, and then after the couple left, went over to her and said, "Hi, I'm Jeff Waldo," and she lost it. And I thought, I don't know how many times you all guys have seen that happen or experienced it, but it's been more than a handful.
Wow.
And you just,
You
you
know,
don't want to interject necessarily. You don't
Right.
want to change their
people think it's funny, and people, for some reason, it's the joke that everybody's in on.
Yeah.
And everybody from every segment of society, no matter what socioeconomic class, no matter how educated, no matter what race, nothing. It's just kind of fun, amusing for everybody.
So cool. So cool. So do you still 420?
We all
Yeah,
do.
we still
We all do. Okay.
Got any?
We'll be, you know,
Okay.
outside.
Oh yeah, it's legal.
Yes.
Forgot.
And what do you do on April 20th every year?
We go, we're holed up in a windowless bunker, or drinking pork chop smoothies. we do something different every year.
It's been more of this as of late.
Oh yeah, like getting asked to speak and
CNN,
We've had a couple
CBS,
Lagunitas parties.
KTVU, they all want to have a cover story. And for that reason, we've obliged.
It's
We've
like
given them
every
time.
year it's the dog and pony show that Steve and I field these offers. So
We've done interviews. I mean, if you get on our website, it's 420waldos.com, we posted hundreds of interviews. BBC, CNN, Wall Street Journal, ABC News, LA Times,
Associated
Huffington
Press.
Post, Time Magazine, just everything. We've done
Marine
hundreds-
Arc.
yeah.
done hundreds of interviews, but still there's so many people that don't know us.
All right, one more question before I open it up to the audience. What was the weed like then compared to now?
There was actually some very good quality, and think about it. Here in Marin County, you have access to so much from the Bay Area, San Francisco, plus those people that were in the industry, music industry as well too. This area was rampant with it, and I
But it
speak
wasn't
from
as
both,
good as it is
both
now.
sides. There's definite to that point as well.
Remember
But there
Colombo
was
Gold, Jeff?
Colombian Gold. There was
I was going to say,
Red.
what were you smoking? What strains were you guys smoking?
Acapulco Gold,
as many
Panama Red,
and some of the very first local
and some
produced as
crappy
well.
cheap CV Mexican weed.
I can remember Mill Valley porchweed here.
I heard some
Smoked.
comedian at
Seriously.
Comedy Day said that Costco wants to start selling marijuana, and you can look forward to that Kirkland Koosh.
Man, we've gone so mainstream that now they have Bed Bath and Bomb.
All right, great. Well, do we have any questions for the Waldos? I've been so transfixed, I haven't even looked this way. Yes.
Are you guys still all friends? Do you all live in the area?
Absolutely.
We still hang out, we still have adventures, we still go skiing, we still get
We're
high.
like brothers. We talk to each other every single week, and we're family.
We still take safaris.
We all go back to basically childhood. We're all in our 60s now. We're like family.
It's something pretty special to be able to see and to keep in touch with people for 50 years. When you think about that, that is a treasure in itself.
3 of us are in Marin, 2 in Sonoma County.
You've outlasted most bands.
And most marriages too.
True, true. Wait, I actually wanted to ask you, because Dave, you mentioned this, that music was a really big part of you guys hanging out.
It was very important because we loved music and it was part of the social scene, you know. We used to go to a place called Winterland in San Francisco almost every weekend. It seemed like to me,
Fillmore,
Fillmore,
Avalon.
but mostly Winterland because that was our main spot. I was over having my ears tested at UCSF about 2 years ago, and they said, "Oh, you've got some hearing loss in your left ear." And it was right down the street from where the Winterland used to be. And I said, "Well, I used to go to this place right down the street called Winterland. That's probably why." But we went to a lot of
I
concerts.
made a list of all the music we were listening to. It's Commander Cody and the Lost Planet Airmen, Elvin Bishop, I'm sure it's music you all know. Grateful Dead, New Riders, Lee Michaels, Tower of Power, Van Morrison, Jefferson Airplane, Santana, Doobie Brothers, Quicksilver, Boss Skaggs, Sons of Chaplin, Dan Hicks and the Hot Licks, Jesse Cullen Young, Pablo Cruz. Outside of the Bay Area, Allman Brothers, Dave Mason, Manassas, Stephen Stills,
Beatles.
Poco, Marshall Tucker Band, The Outlaws, Loggins and Messina, Rick Nelson, of course Led Zeppelin, Creedence, The Who, Chicago. Then we got into country. We were into Merle Haggard, Buck Owens, Waylon Jennings, Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys, Asleep at the Wheel, just on and on. It was just a wide variety.
Oh, so great, great. And you, yep. Mhm.
May I ask, what year did each of you graduate San Belmont?
Different years.
First of all, did you graduate?
Yes.
None of us
Well,
graduated.
I just, high school was the
I was,
toughest 10 years
I
of
was
my
70,
life.
I was 72.
1972.
73. 73 for Larry.
73 too.
So you were mostly sophomores?
Yes.
Yes.
I was the oldest of the Waldos. I entered high school in 68,
So you graduated in
72.
Yes.
Steve, I recall a story, and I may not get it all correct, but I'm hoping that you could tell the story that you had told me on one of your quests to find a treasure. You guys were up at the Bryn Headland, looking up there, smoking weed. I think you said you were in a VW bus. and you-
No, we were in a 66 Chevy Impala.
Well, I had a VW bus too. I had
And
a.
then the fog started to come in.
Yeah, fought, that was with the cows.
Yeah.
That was Point Reyes.
We were out at Point Reyes looking for the weed, and our car was, we'd go on rural lands, farmers' lands, and the car was just filled with smoke. And we rolled down the windows and the smoke came out, and all of a sudden we noticed 2 single file lines of cows right behind our car following us in perfect single file. And we were stoned. We thought it was a total miracle. We were like,
We thought they were hamburgers.
we were so stoned we thought it was a miracle. Later on we found out that somehow the farmer would train his cows to go back to the feed behind his truck, and they just thought we were leading them to the food, but we were stoned. It was pretty amazing.
Anyone else? Yep. Mac?
Is there any truth to the notion that it's a police code? for-
Absolutely not. In
You
California,
research that.
in the state of California, any and all the codes having to do with anything having to do with marijuana, selling it, transporting it, this and that, they were all 5- and 6-digit codes, sometimes separated by a decimal point, and none of them had 420 at all. I researched it all. It was just total.
And by the way, the medical marijuana law passed in California in '96 is AB 420.
I think that was 2003 that started medical marijuana. It was the Senate Bill 420.
Yeah. It's done with purpose. Done with
We had nothing to do with
All
that.
right. Wow.
Larry?
Yeah, can I buy some 420 Waldo weed?
Well,
We're
you
working on
can
that.
buy our vape pen. We have a 420 Waldos vape pen we came out with this year, and we'll be doing it again next year. But this year we had
All the proceeds.
all the proceeds went to charity. We donated all 100% of the proceeds to the Glove Policy Alliance, and we suggest that you guys give to that organization or any charity.
There's still a lot of states where people are sitting in jail because of archaic laws, and helps out people like that.
There's another question here.
Are you aware on Deja Vu, there's a song 420?
No. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's 4 and 20 years ago by Stills, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What year was that?
That's 69.
69, 70.
Yeah.
nothing to do with us.
He knew what you were going to do in the future.
Right. He had ESP.
And there's another favorite
I
Waldo.
got one in the
He was
back.
on ESP Records.
Yes.
Yeah, could you tell us about the other group of folks that claimed, was it the Beebs or something like that, that claimed that they came up
There's a ton of people that have claimed they started this thing over the years, and I mean, we've dealt with hundreds of them. And the one thing that they all have in common is they have zero proof. So there's hundreds of people. We can't keep up with all the names.
And then how did that go? Like, was there any, any interesting stories about that? Were you in contact
Well, the
with
thing
them?
is, it's really funny because we have created a whole cult of 420 claimers.
There was a lot of friends when you think about it. This group here alone, each one of them, the exponent of 20 people would be easily.
Yeah, it went
So
to our
to
friends.
that point, this group plus family, friends, associates, off to college, it was
That's
a
how it
multiple
started.
that
We had
was
brothers,
just
and went to the
massive.
class behind
So
us,
there's a
and
lot
the
of
class behind
connections
them.
of friends that all use the term equally, but not originally.
You know what's funny about those claims is when we first came to High Times with this, before it got famous, 420, no one said that they came up with it for at least
It was
5 or 8 years. No one said it, and all of a sudden it started getting, you know.
That's when the internet exploded. You get all these hoaxers out there.
Now all of a sudden my brother-in-law's made it up.
And you get all these, it's pretty funny because you get all these people crawling out of the woodwork about a stupid little joke we made.
Amazing. And then the other, they tried to get 710, but it didn't really happen.
It hasn't taken.
Yeah, it hasn't taken.
710 is
That's oil upside
Yeah, it's
down.
oil upside down, and it's just, it's just not gonna work.
But the 420 thing, it's been going on for decades, and it just kind of keeps getting stronger. It's in television shows. It was on Modern Family. There was a whole episode of The Family Guy. It just keeps.
I think they have a question here, Steve.
I just wanted to make a comment, really, that we were friends with Jeff Copeland. He told us about you guys, many years ago. So I don't know. I've always believed in. I believe that it originated in San Rafael High School. Gave more sense than anything beyond that. But also just the fact that he had told us about that, and he told us about your website and all that. Ever since I've been sort of following that.
If you guys want to check out our website, it's www.420waldos.com. You can check out our hilarious backstory, and it's very
Last year,
comprehensive.
the Oxford English Dictionary came to us, and I got into the Oxford English Dictionary. Of course, they had to go over all our many, many pieces of evidence before they, would make the entry.
Wikipedia, even. You look in Wikipedia, that's it. Question in the back.
Yes, all the way in the back. Yep.
Apologize for two questions. One, the city of San Rafael, it took 47 years for the city of San Rafael to finally issue licenses just 2 months ago for light manufacturing, delivery, distribution, and lab testing. Are you guys going to partner with any of those guys? And then the second question is, what do you think of the state of cannabis right now, the quality of it?
I think the quality is very good, but I think that cannabis has so many healing powers for people that are sick, and that's why it should have been legal for so long now. We saw a film last night called "Weed the People." You guys should check this film out. And you'll be sold on the medical healing of marijuana.
By the way, I just left the Oakland, it's the hiring fest, and cannabis companies all showing off their product right before this. So downtown Oakland had this new event, and there are all the booths set up from maybe 40 different companies. It's going big business. I'll say that, and you have your choice to be someone that supports corporate, someone that supports small growers, someone that looks a little bit more cautious and carefully about what you consume and how you consume. And I will put that out there for all of us to be aware of what's coming around the bend. Really, figuratively, it is
About a couple of years ago, we had somebody in LA trying to help us get financing people together to do a documentary of our story. But even just 3 years ago, people were nervous about anything having to do with it. I mean, it has happened real fast.
And also, Steve and I have been fielding most of the interviews for the last 20 years. These guys had children, and they didn't want to come out until 2013. So, go ahead.
Has San Rafael High School acknowledged you guys?
Oh yeah, they don't want us coming around, believe me, because that statue, Elliot was there this year with the Associated Press in LA, who works for several newspapers here in Marin. We wanted to get pictures. We asked, and they said, "No, you cannot come by here." But fortunately, the kids were on a week off, so that's when we went down there and got the pictures. Don't tell them.
We were afraid they were going to pull out Louis Pasteur, but they didn't.
So Louis Pasteur, the statue by the garbage cans in the science building. That's where you guys were, right?
Right.
That's where we met.
And then some years later, the artist was upset that it was by the garbage can.
Benny Buffano.
Pulled it down, is that correct?
They moved it.
Well, didn't he just pull it, no, didn't he say it come last
He tried to take off.
And by the way,
And they put it in the center of the store.
right,
Exactly.
Shop.
You're correct.
and
Absolutely correct.
he's the sixth Waldo, by the way.
I was going to tell you back to that Santa Fe High question. They were an account of mine, so the head secretary told me that all the teachers hate us on 420 because all the kids cut school. I go, don't blame us for that, please.
Just want to let you know, on the site, there's a video that we made that shows where we all united. You know, we got together after 45 years, and it tells us pretty much the story and how everything happened. So make sure you check out that video.
Yeah, it's on our website. It is called Treasure Map. It's a short mini documentary I made.
Yeah, the Coast Guardsman, we didn't know him. Only him and his brother knew him. So years ago, it was about 7, 8 years ago, we spent 6 years trying. We didn't know where he was. We spent 6 years trying to find him. That's a whole other story.
We decided we'd look for him because of all these hoaxers claiming they started this thing. So besides all the proof we already had, we said, well, we may not find this guy, but we're going to go try and find him anyway.
And we finally found him after years and years with the help of the San Jose Police Department, all kinds of living homeless on the streets of
We
San
had to
Jose.
hire a private detective too.
And we got all his military, 166 pages of his military records to prove he was there in 1971, tending the lighthouse, etc., etc. There's a ton of backstory.
Where did you get your weed then?
We got it from anybody that had it.
Dave's
back
brother.
then-
Correct answer too.
That's right.
We got it
Back
from
then,
Dave's
you
brother
remember-
and Jeff's dad's front
Right,
drawer.
we get out of the trunk of his dad's car with my brother. And back then, it was called a lid, it was a 4-finger lid. Remember that? And some bad dealers would put little pebbles in the bottom to put more weight in there. And it was filled with stems and seeds.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The good old days.
Yeah. All right, any other questions? Well, guys, thank you